every single night, literally over 8 billion people on this planet enter a totally bizarre, unavoidable state. I mean, think about it. Your body becomes completely paralyzed, you just kind of drift through these super vivid, crazy hallucinations for hours, and then you wake up and basically forget the whole shebang. It sounds honestly terrifying when you put it like that, right? But here's the crazy part. That weird, nightly reality of paralysis and hallucination, it's actually a literal human superpower. Before we begin, if you're interested in psychology, human behavior, and powerful life lessons, make sure to like this explainer and subscribe to the channel. Now let's begin. Okay, so let's really dive into this. That total loss of control we experience every single night has actually sparked some of the most revolutionary ideas in all of human history. So back in 1862, there was this chemist named Auguste Kekulé. He was incredibly frustrated, totally stuck trying to figure out the chemical structure of benzene. Well, he falls asleep, and in his dream, he sees these snakes curling into circles, literally biting their own tails. And boom, the answer just appears to him, completely changing modern chemistry. The exact same thing happened to Paul McCartney, too. He woke up one morning and that legendary song Yesterday was just already fully formed in his head. So clearly, your brain can solve incredibly complex problems while you're asleep. But to figure out exactly how, we actually have to rewind it to 1952. There was a researcher named Eugene Aserinsky who hooked electrodes up to his sleeping son, and he made this completely shocking discovery. Instead of the brain just shutting off like a light bulb, which is, what scientists assumed happened, the sleeping brain suddenly lit up. The brainwaves went absolutely wild, almost as if the kid was awake and driving a Formula One car. His eyes darted back and forth under his closed eyelids, and that right there gave birth to what we now call REM, or rapid eye movement sleep. Section 1. The strange biology of sleep. So what is actually going on inside your head during that intense REM stage? Basically, your brain operates like this crazy, high-end, virtual reality movie theater where you are the director, the main character, and the only audience member, all at the exact same time. And there are 4 extremely important biological changes that happen to make this whole thing work. First up, complete paralysis. Your brainstem sends out this super powerful chemical signal that completely locks down your major muscles. It's a pretty brilliant safety mechanism, honestly, because without it, you'd physically act out your dreams. I mean, you definitely don't want to accidentally punch your partner because you're dreaming about being an MMA fighter, right? Second is realistic hallucination. Your visual cortex becomes highly active, which is exactly why dream colors can be so incredibly bright and the details feel super sharp. Third, and this one is definitely my favorite, is the disappearance of logic. Your prefrontal cortex, which is basically the brain's reasoning and judgment center, just dims way down. That is exactly why riding a giant chicken to go buy bubble tea feels completely normal, at least until you wake up. And finally, the memory wipe. The chemicals you need to form long-term memories, specifically norepinephrine, drop to super low levels. So your brain basically just hits the delete button on all that illogical data. That's why your dreams tend to fade just like 10 minutes after you open your eyes. Now, your brain doesn't just run this crazy movie theater randomly. It follows a really strict 90-minute roller coaster known as the sleep cycle. You start off in this very light sleep where, honestly, just a cat walking by could wake you up. Then you drop down into deep sleep. This is where those slow, really powerful delta waves take over to do all the physical maintenance, like repairing tissue and building up your muscles. It's only after your body is completely taken care of that your brain goes, all right, time for some entertainment, and shoots right back up into REM sleep. Early in the night, the main focus is totally on physical repair. But as morning approaches, those REM stages get longer and longer. And that is exactly why your weirdest, most epic dreams usually hit right around 5 or 6 a.m., right before your alarm clock goes off and ruins everything. Section 2. From Gods to Freud. So before brain scanners and electrodes were even a thing in the 20th century, how in the world did humanity explain this bizarre nightly movie theater? Well, for thousands of years, without any modern science, we basically just had to rely on imagination and some pretty deep-seated religious beliefs. Take the ancient Egyptians, for example. They didn't think dreams were made by the brain at all. They believed they were literally direct messages from the gods. They even went as far as building dedicated sleep temples. They had professional interpreters who would sit down and decode your dreams the very next day. And man, the interpretations were fascinating. Like, if you dreamt of peeing in the Nile River, that was actually a fantastic sign. It meant your crops were going to thrive and the money was going to flow. Basically, dreams were treated like weather forecasts for your personal feat. But then, right in the early 20th century, this massive psychological shift happened. It pulled dreams entirely out of the divine realm and brought them directly into the human mind. That whole shift was spearheaded by Sigmund Freud. He famously called dreams the royal road to the unconscious.
Freud, and later on his famous student Carl Jung, believed that every single dream is essentially just a hidden wish in disguise. The idea was that if you had these dark, hidden desires that society wouldn't normally accept, well, your brain let you safely act them out while you were asleep. But, to protect you from the sheer embarrassment of it all, it encoded those desires into completely random symbols, like a stick or a key. For a really long time, the whole world just kind of bought into this romantic idea that dreams were these deeply coded secrets. However, once modern fMRI and PET scans finally came into the picture, neuroscientists discovered a reality that was way more mechanical and completely focused on basic survival.
Section 3. Sorting Chaos and Memories. So the really crucial point here is that modern science completely flipped the question. Instead of sitting around asking, what does this dream actually mean? Scientists started asking why evolution would even bother keeping such an energy-consuming, frankly risky mechanism in the first place. The first modern theory we got is called activation synthesis. This suggests that dreams might actually have zero deep meaning at all. Basically, during REM, your brainstem fires off all these chaotic electrical signals. Your cortex kind of panics at the mess and just desperately tries to stitch those completely random images and sounds into some sort of coherent story. It's really just your brain trying to find patterns in total chaos. The second theory, which is actually super widely supported today, is memory consolidation. I want you to think of your brain as a really busy librarian cleaning up a huge, messy pile of books at the end of a long day. It basically hits the save button for the really important stuff you learned and just chucks the useless data right into the trash. And there is a study that brilliantly illustrates this memory consolidation theory. It's the 2010 3D maze experiment. Researchers had these volunteers practice a really difficult computer maze. Then, half the group took a nap and actually dreamt about the maze, while the other half rested but didn't dream about it at all. The result? The volunteers who actually dreamt about the maze ended up solving it incredibly faster later that same day. It literally proved that your brain doesn't just passively rest when you sleep, it is actively practicing and improving your real-world skills totally in the background.
Section 4. Virtual Reality Survival Training.
But hang on, if dreams are really just about filing away memories or stitching together some random brain signals, then why do we all get nightmares? Like, why would evolution intentionally keep a biological mechanism that actively terrifies us in the middle of the night? Well, this brings us to the threat simulation and social simulation theories. Evolutionary psychologists argue that nightmares are basically a completely safe virtual reality training room. Think about our ancestors. Dreaming about running from a saber-toothed tiger meant their brain was getting to practice these vital, life-saving reflexes without, actually getting eaten. Today, obviously, our threats are a bit different. We aren't really running from tigers anymore. Instead, we are absolutely terrified of social judgment. So our dreams simulate these stressful modern situations, like getting into a massive heated argument with your boss, or that absolute classic nightmare of standing up in front of a huge crowd to give a speech and suddenly realizing you forgot your pants. By practicing these incredibly complex, totally embarrassing scenarios in a safe VR environment, we actually wake up better equipped to navigate real-world social dynamics.
Section 5. The Ultimate Creativity Lab.
Building on those crazy stories of Kukuli and Paul McCartney we talked about at the very beginning, dreams aren't just strictly for survival. They are quite literally the ultimate creativity lab, because your prefrontal cortex, that logical, sensible center of your brain, is totally powered down. Your brain is no longer bound by annoying physical rules or rigid social expectations. Logic is turned off and creativity is cranked all the way on. It can just freely connect ideas that have absolutely nothing to do with each other in the normal waking world. When you're totally stuck on a problem during the day, your waking rules kind of trap you in a box. But at 3 a.m., deep inside a dream, your mind can effortlessly throw out a completely crazy, out-of-the-box, yet somehow absolutely brilliant solution. Section 6. Protecting the visual brain. Now, all of these theories we've covered are super fascinating, but there's one recent theory proposed by a neuroscientist named David Eagleman that fundamentally changes how we view our own biology. It's called the defensive activation theory. To really get this, you need to grasp this frankly shocking fact about neuroplasticity. Your brain regions, they aren't fixed. They are highly plastic, and they are constantly competing for territory, almost like rival countries on a map. If one region just stops being active, the neighboring regions will literally invade and take it over. In fact, studies show that if you're blindfolded in total darkness for just 40 to 60 minutes, your auditory and touch senses will actually start trying to invade and take over your visual cortex. I'm not kidding. Your brain absolutely does not let any real estate just sit idle. So think about our ancestors sleeping in pitch-black caves for 8 to 10 hours every single night. That is a massive evolutionary risk. If the visual cortex had absolutely zero input all night long, it could easily be taken over by hearing or touch, which would permanently weaken our vision. So, evolution created this brilliant biological screensaver. Every 90 minutes, the brainstem just blasts completely random visual images right into the visual cortex, purely to defend the territory. It's basically the brain's way of shouting, "Hey, I'm still working here, do not invade." What this means is that dreams might actually be a brutal, highly practical, biological turf war happening right inside your skull. So, with all these amazing, totally mind-bending ideas, which theory is actually the right one? Is it about saving memories, practicing survival, boosting our creativity, or defending our visual territory? Well, the honest scientific answer is, it's probably all of them. Evolution is just the ultimate multitasker. It very well may have started with a super basic, highly practical mechanism just to protect the visual cortex in the dark. But over millions of years, the brain hijacked that exact same nightly movie theater to process our complex emotions, build our memories, and even spark creative genius. It's honestly incredibly humbling to think about. I mean, we've photographed black holes, we've mapped out the entire human genome, and yet we still can't entirely agree on why our own brain built a private, bizarre movie theater for us every single night. The mind remains this vast, completely mysterious universe. It really makes you wonder, when you fall asleep tonight, whose territory are you really fighting for? If this explainer helps you understand people a little better, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more psychology insights. Your support helps this channel grow and allows me to create more explainers like this. See you in the next one. Remember, understanding people is powerful, but understanding yourself is life